Hello and welcome to Talking Europe. We are at the European Council speaking to a head of state whose country is determined to join the European Union. We're here with Maia Sandu. Hello, Mrs. Sandu.
Bonjour.
You're the President of Moldova. An EU-Moldova summit was held on the 22nd of June in Brussels as your country, with a population of 2.8 million and bordering Ukraine, opened its first round of negotiations. The Europeans want to support Moldova through this long and complex accession process as you're facing a hybrid war and intense disinformation from Russia, which seeks to undermine the pro-European camp with every election. You were first elected in 2020 and then re-elected in 2024. Your party, Action and Solidarity, also won the parliamentary elections last September with 50% of the vote and 24% for the pro-Kremlin patriotic bloc. So what made the difference? Why did voters choose this pro-European stance?
Indeed, despite the massive interference of the Kremlin regime in Moldova's elections, Moldovans managed to decide for themselves, and they chose EU. They chose EU as their future because EU means peace. And since Russia's invasion in Ukraine, we see Russia's aggression better. We understand the risks that are coming from Moscow. So we want to be part of the EU, first of all, to preserve peace. And EU is being known as the most successful peace project. EU also would allow us to consolidate as a democracy. And it is very important for us to remain part of the free world. And of course, EU is known as the family of countries which have managed to increase significantly the living standards of their population.
Your country, located between Romania and Ukraine, is seeking the gradual reintegration of the breakaway region of Transnistria, which makes up 10% of Moldova's territory and where 1,500 Russian soldiers are stationed, a situation that has persisted since the region broke away from the Moldovan state in 1992. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, the 355,000 residents of Transnistria have become increasingly dependent on Chisinau, your capital, because they have lost their access to free Russian gas. Do you believe that reunification is possible? And is it possible even before Moldova joins the European Union?
First of all, there are only 200 Russian officers. The rest are people employed from the Transnistrian region. This is a risk, but not such a big security risk as one might think. Russia has provoked the war in 1992, and Russia has been supporting a separatist regime all these years. But now Russia has let the people in the Transnistrian region without heating and electricity two winters ago, and it just proves that you can't rely on Russia. More and more people from the left bank of Nistru, as you said, are coming for jobs. They are asking for support from the rest of the country. And yes, we do believe that there might be an opportunity soon enough to reintegrate the country.
Madam President, the official language of your country is Romanian, and you have stated that you do not rule out reunification with Romania, which is a member of the European Union, in order to join the EU more quickly.
We hope that the member states will recognize our effort, and the merit-based process will lead us to the EU accession. If this doesn't happen, of course, we're thinking of many options, but the main objective is to be part of the EU.
European leaders welcomed you here in Brussels for an EU-Moldova summit, as on June 15th you launched the first round of accession negotiations with the European Union, focusing on fundamental rights, public administration reform, and economic criteria. Moldova is already receiving pre-accession funds to support its economy, which has been weakened by the war in its neighboring country. Our reporter Isabelle Romero traveled with Anaïs Chesnel to meet you in Moldova.
A vision of modernity in rural Moldova. The village of Mireni population 5,000, can now boast of a new public lighting network, a solar energy farm, as well as a video surveillance system. That transformation largely due to the EU's Smart Villages pilot programme.
Thanks to this program, and above all thanks to the savings we have allowed, we have been able to reinvest our budget in other projects, notably educational ones.
But the scale of the economic challenge is vast. Moldova's GDP per inhabitant is barely more than a fifth that of the EU average. Its economy has been hit by the war in neighbouring Ukraine, with inflation now reaching 7%, meaning the 1.9 billion euros from the EU's pre-accession funds play a vital role. The EU Investment Conference in June resulted in another 640 million euros in pledged funds from the public and private sectors.
So what we do is to make sure that Europe can go to the level of the European Drinking Water Directive.
Indeed, one example of that investment is Belgian water treatment company Bosac signing a 15 million euro contract, a sum that could rise to 51 million euros. And US cybersecurity giant Fortinet is investing to help Moldova reach EU standards as it's confronted with Russia's hybrid warfare.
It's a platform between East and West. Today, we can already see here what could be the major geopolitical changes in this part of the world. So that means Moldova is particularly under attack when it comes to energy infrastructure, healthcare, transport, and telecommunications.
But the influx of EU funds raises concerns about corruption, which is a major issue in Moldova. For the public prosecutor Roman Porubin, progress has been made, thanks to the creation of a national anti-corruption office.
The EU provides funds, tools, advisory guidance and training. We have already confiscated goods worth the equivalent of $49 million.
Moldova faces the twin perils of Russian warmongering in Ukraine and the breakaway region of Transnistria. For the EU's Commissioner for Enlargement, Marta Kos, the EU has to act to preserve its influence with the countries of the region.
Putin's regime, but also other adversaries, are ready to weaponize them against us, meaning if we will not get them on board becoming a member, somebody else could step in and use them against us.
Supporting the Moldovan economy comes on the condition of verifiable reforms. Last year, Chesnel implemented 24 reforms and received 289 million euros from the EU.
Maia Sandu. So we were discussing your country's economic situation, which has obviously been very precarious since the war in Ukraine, as that has cut off your main source of gas from Russia. You're now connected to the European network and are receiving 1.9 billion euros in pre-accession funds. Are you hoping for an improvement in the economy?
It is true that the Russian invasion in Ukraine has affected significantly the Moldovan economy. But I have to say that despite this hardship, we managed to implement significant reforms. We managed to eliminate completely our dependency on Russian gas. We invested a lot in renewables. And now, because of the war in Iran, the GDP forecast for this year is lower, but we hope to recover. And we are compensating with reforms in the justice sector, reforms in the business environment. Indeed, there is now this 1.9 billion euros, which is the growth plan supported by the European Union. And we do have opportunities. Energy continues to be one of the biggest opportunities for investors. The investment in infrastructure, big infrastructure projects, some of them co-financed by EU, but not only. The IT sector has been developing very rapidly in Moldova and represents an opportunity. The agro-processing, the investment in defense, these are all areas which might be very interesting to foreign investors. And of course, I do believe that the war in Ukraine will come to an end sooner than later, and Moldova will be part of the hub which will help companies, foreign companies, to participate in the reconstruction of Ukraine.
One of the main issues, certainly from an economic perspective, both for Europeans and for you, is the question of corruption. Your country is still somewhat traumatized by what happened 10 years ago. The stolen billion scandal that took place in the context of judicial reform, where around $1 billion disappeared from 3 banks, amounting to about 12% of your GDP. Moldova is working with some EU member states and with the European Public Prosecutor's Office. How is that working?
The main people behind this corruption case that you mentioned, the banking sector fraud, they have been convicted. This is very important. We have been working very hard on justice sector reform and on strengthening the capacity of the anti-corruption institutions. We have been doing the vetting of judges and prosecutors with the support of the EU, particularly to make sure that there are no integrity issues in the justice. And we do have results. We also see it in the trust of the population. Moldova increased or improved significantly in international rankings when it comes to the perception of corruption, measured by Transparency International.
Plus d'1 million de Moldaves vivent en dehors.
More than 1 million Moldovans live outside your country, a large diaspora whose remittances accounted for 8% of GDP in 2024. Unfortunately for you, 40,000 Moldovans leave the country every year. How can you strike the right balance?
Comment rééquilibrer les choses?
We do have 1 million people living abroad, and we have 1 million people who are European citizens already. Some of them are abroad and some of them are in the country. The Moldovans who left the country, they still care about Moldova. They participate in elections. They send money back, and by doing that, they contribute to the economic development. And they do, many of them, they do want to come back, and we want them to return to Moldova. We know that they will return to Moldova, first of all, when there is going to be a higher sense of security, and this means for the war in Ukraine to end, but also when they see that the living standards are increasing. So really big majority of the diaspora vote is pro-EU and pro-democracy.
Vous espérez?
Are you hoping to fully join the EU by 2030?
We want full membership, but we're ready to discuss any proposals that do not replace the full membership and that do not delay the EU integration process.
Merci Maia Sandu d'avoir été notre invitée aujourd'hui.
Thank you, Maia Sandu, for joining us today. Thank you all for tuning in to France 24. Stay with us. More news coming right up.
L'actualité continue.